going to be the only person to say this today, thank you for your never wavering effort to produce safe industry standard food. Thank you all for tirelessly working 365 days a year in all of the elements. Thank you for the early starts, the late finishes, missing family events, weddings, funerals and everything in between to get the job done to produce food for the nation. Thank you. And thank you for all the people who could not make it today because you're out carving, you're out in the elements, you're out lambing. For all the people that could not make it today, we are their voice and we will stand with them. Thank you. So, about the farm. Belmont Farm was established in 2010 with the vision of educating and inspiring the public to fully appreciate farming and where food comes from, alongside educating the public about the British countryside, native flora, native fauna, and how we maintain the biodiversity, which I think doesn't really get heard of much. Even though we have previously been told by the local council that London doesn't have any farmland, I would just like to direct you directly behind us and the lovely rolling fields of the valley, which my team and our neighbouring farms maintain. So we do have farmland in London. We are an all-female team. Where are my girls? Heather, Lucy, Emily, can we get a wave? There they are over there. Yay! They are the sisters I never had and the sisters I have grown to work with, and I love you all dearly. So, farming with women is becoming way more common, and 55% of the agricultural force are women. And recent data from 2024 showed that there is a 64% increase in agricultural students who are women. So we are really a growing force in British farming. We aren't just farmers either. We are midwives, we are vets, we are weightlifters, we are short distance sprinters, we are therapists, we are community support, animal behaviourists and mechanics. We are so much more than just farmers. Farming is an inclusive industry. It does not matter what your gender is, your ethnicity, your ability or your background. You do not have to be from a farming background to be a farmer. Me and my girls, we are about a generation too late. My great-grandparents owned an arable and an agricultural livestock farm in Somerset. They housed children during the Second World War. Sadly, I am too late to have been with their farm, and that's the same for most of my girls as well who I work with. It doesn't mean that I am less able to do my job. Regardless of your background, you can get into farming. It does not mean that you are not a real farmer. And to touch on the point of inclusivity in the industry, I was diagnosed with a neurological condition called RRMS. It is a form of MS. It means that my immune system attacks my brain and it attacks my spinal cord. When I was diagnosed, I panicked. I immediately panicked and thought, that's it, that's the end of my career. But from talking to my team and from talking to Andrew, the owner of this farm, we were able to come up with a plan where I didn't lose my job. I was able to still work with the sheep, work with the cows. It just means the days where my brain gets a bit foggy because I can't really remember it from chronic fatigue, or the days where my legs kind of give out because of muscle weakness, or the days that I wake up and I am partially blind in one eye, I can still do my job. I still turn up every single morning to do my job. We have come up with a plan. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. So, farming is inclusive. Does not matter if you have a disability. I am an advocate for that. I think a massive amount of awareness has been brought and inspired many of the younger generations to get into farming through shows like Clarkson's Farm, through the social influencers who are out there tirelessly publicising that farming, you can do it. And we definitely do take on many, many students. We get about a minimum of 25 to 30 applicants a week wanting to do work experience. It's raised far more of an interest in comparison to 6 years ago when it was not widely known. We support varying students from schools, colleagues, universities, colleges even, universities, helping them achieve their goals and getting their qualifications, many of which now are in universities, and they keep in touch, which is very lovely. It's really nice to see that and see them progress and flourish. But how can we inspire the next generation to get into farming when we really do not know the future of it? How can we instill this passion when the next 5 to 10 years are very uncertain? The countryside, which the public love to go out and have their little picnics in the meadows, they love to do that, watching the stars on the summer evening, how can they enjoy that when many of the farmers are going to be forced to sell as a last resort? There won't be a countryside to enjoy, there will only be houses or car parks or anything else. How can we instill the passion of native British flora and fauna when the farmers protect them, but it will soon be lost? Nobody will be able to appreciate the peaceful summer's evenings with the melodic hums of the bumblebees, the soft flutters of the monarch butterflies, or the brave solo song of the robins. It will all be lost. For as far as I can remember, farmers have been persecuted, which is a brave thing to do to the people who not only feed you, they clothe you, and they also get you drunk. So it's a bit of a brave comment to make. We have some of the best animal welfare practices in this country. We, as British farmers, are proud to produce food for the nation. And in all honesty, if we didn't care about our livestock, we wouldn't be in the industry. I can't tell you the amount of times people have come up to me just in this farm, and they've told me, where is the strawberry milk cow? Where, are these eggs going to hatch? And it's a pen full of hens. And I think that's a real worry, because people are so detached, or be that rather misinformed, about where their food actually comes from, or how much hard work really goes into producing food. These animals or these crops need an exceptional amount of work to put into them for them to be viable, and it is perilous work. I additionally think people do not take into account food security and what that means for us as a nation. Unfortunately, the inheritance tax was the last nail in the metaphorical coffin for farming. It has been one thing after another for so long. The misinformation regarding the subject is so ripe, and so many of us have forgotten between the times of 1929 to 1945, when the country relied on farmers to feed the nation. Memories are short and history is forgotten. But you all standing here together today, attending today, and what you will go on to do in Westminster is history, and we are making new history. It shows our character, it shows our dedication, and it shows our community of farmers coming together regardless of our backgrounds. Me as one person, maybe I won't make an impact, but together we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Rihanna. When Rachel Reeves announced, after this current government beforehand saying they would not tax farmers, when Rachel Reeves announced in the budget this new imposition on farmers and on family businesses, it became really apparent that they are an unhinged government that don't understand the economy, they don't care for the backbone of Britain, for the people that work every day to do that sort of thing, to put the food on the shelves, where a lot of people in the city, and I'm a city dweller, and I've got to be honest, quite a lot of us don't really appreciate quite how hard the job is of a farmer. But our public love farmers, and they know it's part of our culture and way of life. And we've seen poll after poll people saying that, and we've seen that the hundreds of thousands of signatures that together and the millions of the British public have got the backs of farmers. We've got fishing industry here today, we've got businesses, but someone who's been writing brilliantly on the economy for many years, 25 years actually, who's always got something smart and insightful to say, is our next speaker. And I'd like you all to give a very warm round of applause for Liam Halligan, who's been writing at the Daily Telegraph, 25 years for a weekly columnist. Liam Halligan, here with us now.
Thanks, Alan. Yeah, I started my Telegraph column when I was a child. It was back in September 2000 that British farmers, working together with truck drivers and hauliers, brought the UK to the brink of collapse. Sharp rises in petrol and diesel prices saw farmers and hauliers blockade roads, fuel terminals, refineries, putting huge pressure on Tony Blair's new Labour government. Blair declared, you'll remember, an NHS red alert, invoked emergency powers to try to sway public opinion. But many voters are sick of spiralling fuel prices as the farmers and hauliers staunchly backed the protests, even as slow-moving rows of tractors thwarted motorway traffic. And you'll remember, as I do, that even what was then a popular government suffered seriously in the polls. As petrol stations closed, Labour's poll rating plunged from a 10-point lead to a 5-point deficit in a single month. Blair and then Chancellor Gordon Brown were forced to back down. They eased the tax burden on motorists, including a freeze in fuel duty, something ministers had previously dismissed as impossible. And we've heard that word lately. Because for the autumn of 2000, read now, in my view, the spring of 2025. I genuinely believe if Britain's farmers stage serious protests about these deeply misguided inheritance tax changes, then public opinion will back you. Unless the government changes its mind on these spiteful and counterproductive measures, I'd say we're likely in for a rerun of September 2020 with even worse political fallout for a Labour government that's already far less popular today than Tony Blair's Labour government almost a quarter of a century ago. Because we all know that Starmer's party pledged before the election not to tamper with agricultural property relief, which has long allowed farming families to pass on precious agricultural land to the next generation without paying inheritance tax, and rightly so. But in Labour's first budget for 14 years, Rachel Reeves, as you know well, broke that pledge cynically, announcing APR would be capped at £1 million from April 2026, with assets above that value attracting IHT at 20%. Now, the Treasury claims this £1 million threshold will protect smaller family farms. But again, as you know well, many will actually be broken up. They'll be economically unviable. They'll have to be sold off as bereaved families are forced to sell land and pay IHT bills amounting, in many cases, to many hundreds of thousands of pounds. The Treasury again wrongly says 73% of farms will be unaffected by these APR changes. But DEFRA, the branch of government that actually focuses on farming, says that only 34% of farms are valued at less than £1 million, so 2/3 will be impacted by this change. As we all know, very few farms in this country, very few that are viable, are worth under £1 million. That would buy you 50 acres and a very modest house if you're lucky, with the average UK farm, of course, around 250 acres. The Treasury figures are wrong. They include many small holdings to massage down ministers' claims about the share of farms affected by these changes. And consider this, given that the current personal IHT threshold of 325 grand hasn't been adjusted for inflation since 2009, that £1 million APR cut-off is also unlikely to move for years. That's the reality. So, of course, as you'll have worked out, more and more farms will be dragged into the APR tax net over time, more and more bereaved families having to break up farms that they've worked for generations. It strikes me, ladies and gentlemen, that Labour's tax changes, in this case, are ill-conceived and rushed, with a strong whiff of class prejudice, as an overwhelmingly urban party takes aim at thousands of farming families, perceived to be wealthy, but actually seriously cash-strapped. Many British farms are already stretched to breaking point after a decade of spiralling prices for fertiliser and other vital inputs. So many farms, squeezed by powerful supermarket buyers, operate, as you know, on wafer-thin margins and don't have vast reserves of cash. Now, hear me out, ladies and gentlemen. I do think there's a case for clamping down on the growing ranks of non-farmers buying agricultural land for purely speculative reasons, solely to avoid inheritance tax. So I've been proposing in my columns, and I'll continue to propose, agricultural property relief with no upper limit should only apply to those who can demonstrate at least a 20-year track record of farming, active daily engagement in agriculture, like all of you. This is how to exclude city financiers, private equity bosses who are now stockpiling land, but who have no real stake in farming. This 20 years in farming rule can easily be implemented. The information is easily and readily available. HMRC have all the information from historic tax returns. I truly believe this policy would be popular with the public, addressing the point that APR is being abused by the wellies and pinstripes brigade And most importantly, what I'm proposing will protect genuine farming families like yours from this ghastly tractor tax. Labour's already taking serious liberties with our energy security. The decision to close down new North Sea oil and gas production is ludicrous student politics that's now threatening to cause blackouts. Is this really the time to take risks with our food security as well, by undermining Britain's precious farming sector too? And there's something else. These tax changes don't just impact farming families, but tens of thousands of the UK's other family businesses. The small and medium-sized enterprises that employ 2/3 of our population, the engine room of growth. Because from this April, a business worth, say, £10 million will face a 20% tax bill on 9 million. That's 1.8 million to be paid within 6 months. And if firms take a special dividend to meet that IHT bill, that's another 38% tax charge. Many families will just sell, deeply undermining the UK's fantastic family business sector, the very backbone of our economy, the heart of our innovation and employment. That particular aspect of Reeves's budget is as yet barely understood by the media and the political class. But be in no doubt, when farmers protest against Labour's IHT changes, countless SME business owners, to say nothing of the broader country, will be backing you. This government's treatment of farmers is shabby, it's spiteful, it will stoke food price inflation, and it will undermine Britain's ability to feed itself. These policies are class war idiocy, in my view, by an overwhelmingly urban party that knows little of the countryside and seems to care even less. So I say, in parting to Farmers for Action, go ahead with your protests. Ministers in this already deeply unpopular government will be forced rightly to change their minds, as they did a quarter of a century ago, because the country is with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. It should be noted that when Farmers to Action did our first big action, that was the thing on the 10th, just so recently, that got all of the supermarkets to change their tone. We saw Sophie from Morrison's come out immediately and say Morrison's are with farmers, and one by one we saw all the other big supermarkets come out. Well, fantastic, they're behind farmers to stop IHT, talking to the government. Now some have tried to smear a little bit. Some have tried to say that somehow if you unite farmers and fishing people and businesses and veterans and the public, that's far right or right wing. Well, we don't listen to all of that. We're upbeat, we're positive, we're all going to be showing unity. Today we're going to be heading to Whitehall. But a word and a no. We're here. We're not going away. And anyone that thinks that they're going to kind of smear or attempt to kind of scare us, we are stronger than ever. We're united. We've got the public out there. We've got people writing to their MPs. This petition that was signed, that the MPs are debating in Parliament today, many of all of our people have sent them in. They've been canvassing their MPs and their councillors. We're making sure that we're all working together, Farmers to Action, to have our voices heard. And on that note, when Tarquin de Meza came and said, you know, we're going to set this thing up with Justin Rogers, and Justin Rogers, the co-founder of Farmers to Action, I got to meet a lot of brilliant farmers quite quickly from around the country. And the next speaker is a farmer that you'll all be familiar with. He's done a lot of stuff on social media. And some people think, because they don't see that much social media, or a few people on social media, that they're the farmers. Obviously, that's not the case, right? We've got, 220,000 farmers in Britain. And as it happens, Farmers to Action is the biggest growing farmers organisation. And, everyone should take note of that, particularly those who are not really representing farmers. Our next speaker has been very vocal on social media. Let's have a warm round of applause. He's from Shropshire. Everyone knows him. This is Alan Hughes.
Good morning. My name is Alan Hughes. I am a 36-year-old fourth generation farmer from the Hereford, Shropshire border. We farm 300 acres, of which we own only 65 and tenant farm the rest. And yet even we are on the borderline of paying a new IHT. Yet I have to run 2 farm diversifications just to stay afloat and pay the bills. My fear, like many here, is that I will be the last generation to farm our land. Labour do not want farmers. They want large corporations to produce food, because they know those that control the food we eat control the nation. We produce the one product that everybody needs 3 times a day. That's food. Yet our price is set by the supermarkets. The deal has always been that farmers produce food for small profits in exchange for being paid subsidies for the food we produce by the government. This is the same system used by 3/4 of the civilised world to ensure that food is kept affordable for the public so that they have money to spend at their leisure and create a thriving economy. Yet this government has created the perfect storm. They have removed the subsidies in this new budget and allowed the supermarkets to hold the prices down to the same level for the last 10 years. We are now producing food for less than it costs us to produce it. And without these subsidies, we are running at a loss. And unfortunately, some businesses are now going out of business. Farmers are the backbone of this economy. It is well known globally that this agriculture is a core industry. And if you have a strong agricultural and rural economy, it creates a stable national economy. Labour's own statistics state for every £1 spent by a farmer generates a further £7 for the rural economy. So it's clear, if farmers go bust, the rest of the economy goes bust with us. No other industry is told to produce their product at a break-even or a loss, let alone to get another job to supplement producing that product. Yet this is exactly what every farm is told to do, to diversify to survive. This practice is morally wrong, especially when the supermarkets are making 300 to 400% markups on the price they pay farmers for a year to 2 years' work, and then make massive profits in a matter of weeks, selling food at extortionate prices. The government and the supermarkets are making millions at the expense of the British public, and this is leading to a national and global food emergency. The world population is growing faster than farmers can increase food production. This government are calling to take 10 to 20% of the best agricultural land out of food production to build solar farms, greening projects and additional housing. Labour says this is to fight global warming, yet they intend to build a new runway at Heathrow, which will create more pollution than all the farms in the UK combined. Let's be clear, these policies have nothing to do with the global warming. It's all about money and control. The government are receiving gifts, political donations from large corporations to grant the planning for these solar farms. Yet they're taxing everybody in this country until they are on their knees. What sane government would keep giving away billions of taxpayers' money to other countries when they can't even fund the NHS or even fill in the blasted potholes? It is utter madness that this government is putting other countries' people before its own. This country is now at breaking point. Winston Churchill said, "The idea that a nation can tax itself into prosperity is of the crudest illusion that has ever fuddled the human mind." That leaves us all with a choice. I have made mine. That is why I'm here. I am standing here to tell the government enough is enough. You need to listen to the people of this country, or you need to make way for a government who will. We will not allow you to remove our freedom of speech. You need to abolish inheritance tax for all. You need to stop taxing us to the hilt while sending our money abroad and sort out our national infrastructure and food security. You need to make it so that those who work in this nation feel the benefit of their hard work by having a good quality of life, rather than struggling to pay the next bill. If anyone here feels as I feel, please contact your local MPs, your local councillors, and appeal to their moral character to act for the benefit of the people of this nation rather than the benefit of their own pockets. Hopefully, they will see common sense and we can turn this around so that our country is no longer downtrodden and economically struggling and can go back to being a prosperous and thriving United Kingdom for the benefit of our children and all future generations yet to come. Thank you for your time and your support for British agriculture and our British people.
Thank you, Alan Hughes, Farmers to Action co-founder. Our next speaker, I just want to say hello to Nigel as well. Nigel Farage he's come down Belmont Farm. Nigel's speaking. This is part of the battle for Britain. He's going to be speaking at the end. But I would say to any politicians or any media out there that we're about unity and we're about the British public and our farmers and fishing and businesses all together. Some don't like to see that. They don't like to see that unity and solidarity. Nigel's been very supportive. Big round of applause to Nigel Farage in the House. Our next speaker is here representing as a business leader. He's someone that's from the sector of hospitality. He's actually got an injury because he's also a boxer and he's been raising money for charity, but he comes from a business where he's come from his father having done the same business. He's going to talk in the spirit of unity. Family businesses are also having this egregious imposition put on them that's damaging and harmful. He's well known on social media. Let's have a warm round of applause for Adam Brooks.
I'll keep this short and sweet because it's very cold out here. But one thing I will say is farmers get up at 3, 4 in the morning and they work in these conditions. Something I could never imagine doing. I'm standing here, I can hardly feel my hands. So credit to farmers. They put the food on our tables and in our supermarkets. And without them, we would starve. So big credit to farmers. I'm here for Farmers to Action against this government who I would say is spiteful and cruel. They're free to give our taxpayers' money to foreign farmers, but they want to take it away from our own. So thank you for everyone for coming today, and thank you for Alan Miller and Together Declaration for supporting the farmers. Now I'm here unofficially for hospitality. We are big buyers of food from farms, and obviously we want to protect food prices, food security and food quality. Hospitality has been hit hard by COVID restrictions over the years, on the energy price inflation, and we cannot afford to be walloped with further increases in food prices, because that means our customers will have to pay more. That means the poorest in our society will have to pay more for their food. This inheritance tax raid on farmers is diabolical, because farmers were exempt from this inheritance tax for decades for good reason. That is so that farmers can pass their farms down to their children to protect the continuity of family farms. We pay tax on everything that we buy, whether it be everyday goods, our houses, our cars, our fuel, and then we get hit again when we die. As a small businessman, I would love to be able to pass on my pub to my family and my children. this government makes that nearly impossible. So again, I stand here from hospitality, and we stand side by side with our farmers, and I hope that everyone gets behind not just them, but farmers to action, and let's abolish this tax for all. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adam. Adam's going to jump in one of the tractors as well on the way down. We're all going to head to Whitehall a little later. Let's just, because we've got a comrade in arms come from the fishing industry, but let's make some noise with the tractors and put some lights on it. We've got some guys in there. Can we make a little noise? I've got done an impromptu there. And because our next speaker has been a real vocal advocate for the fishing industry across Britain. And sometimes when I talk to her, she's very articulate, very forthright, very straightforward. She warns what could happen to farming based on what's been going on with the fishing industry, and it's a nerve-wracking, daunting moment, and we must avoid that from happening. Let's have a little noise from the tractors. Great! Farmers to action together. Let's give a warm, warm welcome to June Mummery.
Good morning, everybody. Well, this is really, really different. Very different indeed. I usually look at a sea of fishing boats. Well, a few fishing boats. Because let's face it, this government has taken away the fishing industry. The UK fishing industry is just about finished. 84% of fishermen in the UK is the small-scale fisherman, which is an under 10-metre boat. Day boat, if you like. So I've watched my industry go down the pan rapidly because of our government that does not take food security. Well, I don't even think they think about it. We have DEFRA, MMO, various different government bodies that just don't care. So I stand here today with farmers to say, I feel your pain. And I wear the T-shirt along with the rest of the UK fishing industry. So we will stand side by side. And I've got one thing to say to our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. You've got this wholly wrong. You need to stand back, put your hands up and scrap this ridiculous inheritance tax. In fact, scrap inheritance tax for all. It's just a death tax and it's not right. So we will, as fishing and farming, unite, stand together and make sure that you don't go through the same pain that the fishing industry have had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, June. So we can see that we've got reconnaissance vehicles, we've got tanks. I want to say hello to the Met Police as well. Hello, chaps. Thanks to the police. Say hello to them. And we're going to get a bit of a... We're going to get some bikes going down, taking us down there towards Whitehall, which will be good as well. So our next speaker is someone that's going to talk about our history, our culture, the role of veterans and tanks, and what it means to be part of our way of life. So I'd like us all to give a warm welcome to the well-known TV celebrity and historian, cultural historian, Bruce Compton.
Well, that's one of the best introductions I've ever had. Cultural historian, wonderful. Listen, self-taught me, but the reason I'm here today is because I'm a passionate person. I'm passionate about our country. I'm passionate about you farmers. I'm passionate about everything to do with our heritage. And for me now, at the age that I've got to, I can no longer sit back and see our heritage and our once great Army, Navy and Air Force being rubbed away by this woke government that want to try and tell us it's not quiche to be favourable with our veterans. Our veterans are the people that represent us all around the world. Now, in one swipe, the government are not supporting our veterans. Something I'm very, very proud of now at the moment with what I'm doing is is to make sure that we give the support to those guys that have given up everything and in some cases lost their wives, only to find out that the government wants to take away payments to some of these veterans' wives and families. Outrageous. How can we stand by and allow this to happen? I actually live on a farm. I'm not a farmer, as you can tell. I'm probably from a place in the East End where there were no farms. But that aside, I sympathise with what they're trying to do to you. Has got to be stopped, and we have to stop it. The whole thing about the veterans and people think veterans, Second World War veterans. It's not. We've got modern day veterans that are struggling, that need help. And if it wasn't for some of the fantastic organisations like Pilgrims Bandits and others, these guys don't get the support that they should be getting by right. And for me, standing here today as being hopefully a heritage spokesman for reform, it's something that is deep inside me, and I'm proud to be standing here. We are having our history eradicated. It's not quiche. The Attorney General has said this week we're all racists because of our colonial past. I mean, how ridiculous is this? You know, we've got teachers of woke backgrounds telling us our children shouldn't be told about the history of the British Empire and what we've done. Now, in all fairness, history is something you take warts and all. You take the good with the bad. But listen, I'm proud of my heritage, I'm proud of my history, and I'm proud of this country. And I'm even more proud to be standing in front of like-minded people that have said enough is enough, and we've got to make a stand against this. And I do believe, as what our chairman yesterday gave a speech where he's actually complimenting the Americans. The Americans have turned the corner and are now starting to say, be proud of your nation, be proud of your heritage, be proud of your armed forces. Instead of chasing them, for instance, that happened years ago, our veterans went all around the world defending our country and our beliefs, only to be chased years later by trumped up charges that are just ridiculous. Now, it's people, again, like ourselves, that really have to make a stand with this. Seeing this tank here today, I mean, I'm a bit of a tanky. I probably wouldn't get in that one, but that's another thing. But for me, it shows the pride of this country. And supporting farmers, supporting fishermen, and stopping this ridiculous wokeism up and down the country with solar farms, wind farms, and all this type of thing, because it's basically big business. We've got huge companies, can't wait for some of you farmers to fail and take your land. And it can't happen. We've got to make it stop. And this organisation and this everybody, we're growing. We're growing in numbers across the country, up and down the country. Now, from my side, as I say, it's specifically about the military side that I'm interested in. But everything that you people stand for is something I stand, live and die for. Thank you very much.
We stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and that's why our freedom and free speech and our ability to protest is so important. Another thing, Bruce just mentioned America, but one of the big discussions in America right now is making America healthy again. And you guys, farmers, our fishing people, and the standards in Britain, it's so essential that food security is retained, that we make sure we do not have what's happened to energy, so that it's so volatile, and the public's really concerned about that. And that's another reason we keep making the point, getting the public involved, supporting our farmers, making sure your MPs and councillors hear from you. So keep doing that. Our next act is a performance. He's actually an agricultural contractor, and he's married into a family farm. He's a musician, he loves farms, and he's come to do a track for us today. Let's give a warm welcome at Belmont Farm to Philip Barnes.
So I wrote this song situation, if you can hear me. Across that. Hope you enjoy it. British farming, it's the heart of the Isles. British farming, it's the heart of the Isles. Oh, British farming, it's the heart of the Isles. Oh, British farming. 4 generations, we work on the land, out no weathers, lips closed, calloused the nation with food on our plates, all the legislation and all the red tape. Oh, British farming, it's the heart of the Isles. Oh, British farming, it's the heart of the Isles. Oh, British farming, it's the heart of the Isles. Oh, British farming. Next generation that wants to farm just like your forefathers did before. We'll have to sell land and the farmyards too. No farms, no farmers. What are we gonna do? Oh, British farming, it's the heart of the Isles. Oh, British farming, it's the heart of the Isles. Oh, British farming, it's the heart of the Isles. Oh, British farming.
Lovely, thank you, Phil. Thank you, warming up our hearts. So, obviously this is real stuff. Everyone knows that thing about football. Is it as serious as life and death? And he says, don't be silly, it's much more serious than that. But that's the thing about farming, no joke, because the point is that if we lose our farmers, we lose our food security. We don't want solar panels or BlackRock or all the big corporations just taking over the land. And the next speaker is going to talk a little bit about what actually happens when that situation happens. Because Fred Roberts, who's in Cheshire, has actually lost a farm. And he's going to tell us a bit about that story and the reality of what that means. And we need to make sure today and moving forward that we don't allow that to happen in our country to our farmers, that we stand together and we stand united and we have our voices heard. Big round of applause for Fred.
Thanks guys, good morning. I just want to say thank you very much for all coming down today. It's a hell of a trip and I'm very proud to stand here with all of you lot, and you should all be very proud of yourselves as well. Who am I? I'm Fred Roberts, I'm from Cheshire. For 70 years my family farmed in the heart of Cheshire. My children are 5th generation apple growers. We taught them how to graft apple trees at 5 years old. They grew their own orchard and they enjoy the fruits of their labour every summer when they get to pick the apples. We had 6 farms producing fruit and veg for Manchester and Liverpool markets, and they supplied all the greengrocers and the food went to the local communities. It was fresh food, good food, not the kind of food that sits in supermarket shelves for weeks. We worked the land, we fed our communities and we provided lots of jobs, and we worked damn hard. But like so many others, we lost it, not because we wanted to, but not because we weren't willing to fight for it, but because the system made it utterly impossible to hold on to. Years later, me and my partner are trying to build a farm from scratch, not because we inherited any land, not because we have family money behind us, but because we believe in British farming. For 10 years we've been building our dream, investing every penny, every spare scrap of energy, whilst raising a young family and working multiple jobs. Because we believe in real food, in hard work, and in passing knowledge and ethics down to our children. But every step of the way we've hit the same wall. The system is not built for people like us. It's practically impossible. Generations of farmers have dedicated their lives to this land, passing down knowledge, preserving traditions, and growing food for this country, only for the government to turn to their children and say, you're going to have to sell it. But don't worry, you've got 10 years to pay what your families have been building for generations. That's what's happening right now. It's nothing short of a land grab. Family farms aren't being lost because people don't want to farm. That's all we want to do. They're being lost because of red tape, such as inheritance tax, which will force farmers to sell up just to pay the bill. And when that land is sold, it's not going to the next generation of farmers. It's going to developers, investors, nonsensical schemes that push food production further out of Britain. My family lost our farms, and I know we're not alone. We are part of a generation being priced out of our own industry and watching our very way of life disappear. Every time a family farm disappears, we lose more than just a business. We lose local food. We lose skilled countryside stewards who understand their land deeply and care for what they do. We lose a future for our children and for a million other kids to have the choice to be able to farm at all. We're watching our food security slip away piece by piece, and the UK already imports half its food. How much more are we willing to lose before we realise we cannot eat government policy? I refuse to let our children grow up in a country where British farming is history. That's why I'm here, that's why we're all here, because one day we'll have to look our children hard in the eye and tell them what we did. And I want to be able to say with my hand on my heart, we fought for you. We need real change, policies that protect family farms instead of punishing them. We need the government to stop treating British farmers like an inconvenience and start recognising we are the backbone, if not the very foundation of this country. If we don't fight for our farms now, and if this inheritance tax goes through, there will be not much left to fight for at all. Now is the time to back a grassroots movement like the FTA, which is a bunch of real farmers for real change, and we all need to stand together and abolish this inheritance tax, not just for us as farmers, but for everyone in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. Our next speaker has got a friend with her. You may have seen her recently on GB News talking about some of the crazy things that some seem to penetrate into some of our institutions, into what you can and can't say. Well, nothing's going to stop our next speaker from saying what she wants to say here. It is Tess Weldon, who's a sheep farmer. Let's give her a warm round of applause and good welcome. Tess.
Good morning. Thank you to Farmers for Action for organising this rally, and to the media. And to the media for turning up so early, and to Belmont Farm for hosting us. As glad as I am to be here with other like-minded campaigners, despite being up so early, it does feel like I'm already lambing. I can't help but feel it's unfortunate that farmers are still having to take time off at one of the busiest times in the farm calendar to defend their livelihood against those in Westminster and Whitehall who'd rather see farms concreted over, turned into suburban housing developments, or sold to their friends at BlackRock and used as solar farms. Certainly not very sunny today. We're still here, simply put, because this is not a battle that Britain can afford to lose. In 2024, over half of farms on the open market were sold to non-agricultural buyers. If Labour continues their plan, more farmers are going to have to make the decision to sell up. It's little secret that we've seen more and more red tape coming from civil servants and DEFRA, who have likely never set foot on a farm, yet think that they're in a position to tell farmers how it's done. We now have to count how much crap our sheep produce for the eco-brigade, step aside as badgers give our cattle herds TB, and then dutifully cull our cows rather than the pests that carry this disease, and fill in so much paperwork that you might be forgiven for thinking that Whitehall actually think that farming is a desk job. The cost of our inputs has gone up more than 30% since 2019, yet the prices dictated to us by the supermarkets remain stagnant. Meanwhile, while having their farm as an asset, most of us farmers are also using it as leverage to buy the machinery necessary to farm. Margins have never been lower, nor the prevailing conditions more hostile. Make no mistake, farming is at a crisis point. And while Labour politicians are on the record saying that we could do without the entire agricultural industry, they could not be further from the truth. To state the obvious, farming is the linchpin of the rural economy. A healthy farming sector doesn't just employ farmers. Farming supports other small businesses, slaughterhouses, butchers, vets, contractors, mechanics, greengrocers, the list goes on. The agri-food sector is worth £127 billion. And if farming collapses, these jobs, often employing those in rural communities, will go with it. But at the risk of blowing our own trumpets, we farmers do more than that. A strong British agricultural sector ensures food security for our country, something we saw the importance of during the COVID supply chain crisis. Our food standards are the highest in the world, and our produce can feed British people without doing thousands of air miles, and without the associated carbon footprint. For the left, who seem so concerned with climate change, surely this would be a good thing. So perhaps the real reason that Labour wants to stamp out the agricultural sector is because of what we represent: heritage, continuity, community and culture. Farmers have safeguarded the countryside for hundreds of years, ensuring that we have the privilege of walking over the same hills that our ancestors did, and of enjoying the same unblemished scenery that has inspired countless great works of art, poetry and novels. The landscape for which Britain is famous, and the landscape that, if lost, would take with it a great part of our heritage. The value of farming, you see, is not purely economic. The value it provides proves that we, the British people, are not just cogs in an economic machine, and that Britain is not just a collection of economic units to maximise profit for Keir Starmer and his cronies, no matter what the cost. So I charge you this: the real reason we're being discouraged from protesting and that Labour are intent on imposing this regressive and counterproductive tax is because in order to impose their social and economic vision for the United Kingdom, they need farming, this bastion of our culture and history, to die. When we cease to farm, they can concrete our farms over, create shoddy housing and shoddier faux eco projects, and exploit this country for the resources until it has bled dry. On the bones of farming, Labour envisions a country where equality entails everyone living in equal squalor, doing the same public sector jobs and eating the same gruel. Farmers, whose profit and loss in large part depends upon the hours and graft we put in, are the antithesis of this Marxist ideology, and Labour knows this. We have no place in their brave new world. They don't like our manure, or our working dogs, or the mud that our tractors leave on the road. They have no conception of the constant stress that farmers are under, not just to comply with regulation or make ends meet, but to look after their animals' welfare, other farmers that might be struggling, and the land for future generations. Farming is spending 5 AM until 10 PM in whatever weather trying to get the harvest in. It's being in a field in pyjamas and wellies at 3 AM, helping a new mum deliver her calf. It is blood and sweat and tears, and it is not a life of privilege or leisure. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I know neither would the other farmers stood here today. We must keep fighting for our lives, our livelihoods, and the survival of rural communities, as well as food security for the entire nation. It's time that our government faced facts and stopped biting the hands that feed it before they run out of food. Thank you.
Thank you, Tess. Our next speaker doesn't in some ways need a big introduction because he's internationally renowned, but that's why it's so exciting that Nigel Farage has joined us today, because in many ways we're seeing, I think, what we've been seeing in America happening in Britain every day more and more. We're seeing a situation where the public who've been told, be quiet, stand in the corner, you're not allowed to say that, you're not allowed to talk about your culture or heritage or this word or that word, you're certainly not allowed to go and protest. If you put things on social media, who knows, you may get a knock on the door. Not if there's a burglary down the road. Well, the British public's had enough of that, and we're not going to be able to silence the British public. It's not going to happen no matter what the current technocrats say. And that's why it's so exciting that we've got Nigel Farage here today for Farmers to Action Together. A big warm round of applause. Nigel Farage.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. The bad weather puts off left-wing protesters, but not, I see, the farming community. And you're going to go and give them hell in Westminster today, are you not? Because the MPs need to listen. Now look, I have believed right from the very start that provided this campaign was sustained and was taking place all over the country, I actually think there are some wins that we can get from this. Why? Well, normally governments with big parliamentary majorities can do what the hell they like. This government has a big parliamentary majority, but 7 months in, how well's it going? They are doing very, very badly indeed, and they're scared out of their lives. They've got 100 Labour MPs that are representing rural or semi-rural constituencies. And from what I can see, Joe Public is getting behind the concept that the family farm should not be driven out of existence. So politically, I think we can win this. And what's really exciting is other groups are getting on board too. Because this IHT, it isn't just the farms that it hits, it's family businesses as well. In fact, inheritance tax, when you think about it, it's on money that we paid tax on already. The whole thing's monstrous. So I think the country now is going to come together with lots of different groups, and let's just stand up and say no to death taxes, full stop. End death taxes. They're wrong, they're immoral at every level. And the way your community is being treated is unbelievable. I think somebody in the Treasury got their sums wrong, where they set the financial limits, or could it be they just want lots of land? Because they're planning for another 5 million people to come into the country in the next few years. They want to cover tens of thousands of grade 1 agricultural land in places like Lincolnshire with solar panels. Could it be there is an even deeper, more sinister agenda behind what they're doing? Either way, what they're doing is wrong. And I think the one thing the people of this country have is a strong affinity and a strong feeling for the countryside. And that countryside is as beautiful as it is because of families, be it small farms or bigger estates, that have managed this land for centuries and left it as it is. So let's get the whole country behind this campaign, apart, of course, from the political class in Westminster, who now have no connection or no understanding of what our rural communities are, what they represent. Maybe you're not diverse enough. Maybe that's what it is. Although I think, as we can see, and Alan mentioned it, DEI is dying in America, and very soon it's going to die here too. And we'll start judging people on who they are, not what they are. And wouldn't that be a huge improvement? So I promise that I will go on with my colleagues, backing your campaigns here and around the country. I also promise that if we have anything to do with it after the next general election, and you never know, the polls are looking quite good at the moment. If we have anything to do with it after the next election, if this has been done to your community, I promise you, we will reverse it. And I make that a promise to you. So look, let's keep fighting. Let's keep the pressure up here and right around the country. And by the way, you've all been behaving impeccably. I know some think more radical action is planned for, but remember, we're not French. Right? They might set fire to things. That might be their culture. It's not our culture. And I would urge all of you, despite how much you've got on the line, despite how distressing this is, and I know in Clacton itself, I've met farming families in tears because they so desperately want to hand this on to the next generations. But please, Keep doing it the way you're doing it. Voluble, but peaceful, within the law. And I tell you what, if we do that, we'll get the whole country on side. I wish you all the very best of luck. I promise you, I am right behind you. To London we go!
Thank you very much, Nigel. No wonder the polls look as they do at the moment. It's very exciting. Remember, everyone watching on the live stream, make sure you let your MPs hear from you and your councillors. It matters, it counts. We'll take a quick photo. Yeah, video.
Give us a wave in the background.
Let's say who we are. Who are we?
Farmers to action!
What do we want?
Axe and tax!
Thank you very much, Nigel. Really appreciate it. All the best. We've had fruit and veg farmers. We've had sheep farmer, Tess Weldon, Yorkshire. Our next speaker has got another bit of a harrowing story as well, but he's made good because farmers, that's what farmers do. I want to start saying that's what we do, because even though I'm not a farmer, I'm standing with farmers. And you know, when people say, oh, but you're not a farmer, it's a bit like I come from hospitality. And the idea that I wouldn't want people from fishing or mining or anywhere else or retail to stand with me from hospitality is ludicrous. I want everyone to stand together. I want the public to stand together and our veterans. So I'm going to say we. So we have today a farmer who's going to talk about his experience. He's a dairy farmer that comes from Cornwall, but it's been around the world. He's well known on social media as well. It is Mark Harvey. Big round of applause for Mark Harvey.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, hey, I got a face for radio, but never mind. So yeah, why am I here? My family farm in North Cornwall, a dairy farm. They've been there since 1946. Before that, they were down at Lamorna, which is nearly Land's End, a dairy farm down there where they milked a couple of Ayrshires. And they brought the Ayrshire cows, the chickens, the geese and the sheep. They brought them all up on the train from Penzance up to Tresmere station, which is near the family farm now. So, going back, my family were at Lamorna for the best part of 200 years. Before that, they were in Bury St Edmunds, up here on the east coast, right back to 1308. That's as far as they've got back on the family tree. So, my grandfather and his two brothers and his sister, they handed the farm down to my dad and his three brothers. They're about 28 years ago. And things were tight. Milk price was bad. The whole milk industry was in a terrible place. And quite relative to today, and what we're fighting for was, just before my granddad retired, he bought 80 acres on, adjoining our farm. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As land comes up, next to your farm, you've got one chance to buy it, and my granddad did buy it. But it put the family and the farm at home in a terrible state for about 20 years. We could not afford to expand at that time. We borrowed that money at high interest rates, and it crippled the family business for about 20 years. Now farming is a little bit better at home, but I don't work at home. My family couldn't afford to employ me, a growing man that wanted a family, so I went off and looked after other people's cows. And if anybody knows me, there's a few people here from Cornwall and from Devon that do know me. I am very passionate about cows. I just love cows. So I worked my way up through from sort of assistant herder